Okay, everybody. What do you say we do a live show? I'm here, you are here, and we are one, as Paul Stanley says in that Kiss song, Psycho Circus. As you can tell by the background, I am here at my father's place in Renfrew, PA. And I will be here till tomorrow. And then in the afternoon, I'm going to start my drive back to Florida. And I'm going to be leaving in the afternoon so I can hit a place like Charlotte, North Carolina when it's not busy. Of course, the roads aren't as populated at night. So I can get down to North Carolina. It'll be about 10 at night. And I hope I'll probably have to take a snooze. We'll just have to see. But hope to be in Florida right around the time the sun is coming up in Clearwater, but we'll just have to see. But that's the plan. But here I am. I've been here. I got here about noon Eastern time yesterday. And when you saw me last, a week ago, can't believe it's been a week. I just don't know where the weeks go. I was at my buddy Dave's place in outside of Peoria, Illinois. And I did not make the cut. We'll get into the disc golf in a little bit. Did I just say that? The disc golf. The disc golf, I'll get into that in a bit. But on Saturday, I drove what would be 8 hours, although with the time change, it's 9 hours, from Dave's place to my sister's place in Canfield, Ohio. And I see that Charles, her son, my nephew, is in here. Hello, Charles. And so I made it over there, and I got to see Charles's two sons, Cole and Bratian, who are staying with their grandmother for a few weeks. So I got there. What time was it on maybe 5:30 or something? I forget. Or maybe 3:30. I forget. Anyway, got there and we went out to dinner, had some pizza at a pretty cool place. And then we came back, and once it got dark, my sister has a projector, and we sat outside and up against like this sheet or something that was hung up on the garage that they have. And we watched the movie Wreck-It Ralph that I've not seen before. It was pretty good. And then everybody went to bed. And then the next day we got up, had some pancakes, played a little cards with the kids, Charles' sons. And then I got on the road for Pennsylvania. And it's not that far of a drive from my sister to my dad's. And made it here around noon. And his community here was having brunch at 1. So I went up there with my dad, and a bunch of people were up there, and got to hang out for like an hour. And then came back here and did an interview on Sunday. Did the Think Tank, patreon.com/Unfound Podcast at 7 o'clock. And so, like I said, I will be here till tomorrow. And then I will make the roughly 16-hour drive back to Florida. So let's see who is in here. Karen got in here first. Hello to you, Karen. And Ashley and Laura. Fishing says, so when does it start? I went to listen, but the time zone and work schedule makes it a problem. 1 hour does make a difference. Well, we're back at the regular time of 9 p.m. Eastern. I think it was 9 p.m. last week, too. It's just it was 8 p.m. Central Time. Hello, Charles, nephew Charles. And there's Hope. Good to see you. There's Hope. Jasmine. Going to answer your question tonight, Jasmine. Hello, Paula in the green. Cherie in the blue. The real coming to us from Australia. And Kathy's having some internet problems. Hello, Twinkle. And good to see everybody. Thank you for all making time on this now very new day of Mondays, the live show. And believe it or not, we've been doing this on Mondays for like 7 weeks now. Started this at the beginning of June. It's just crazy how fast the time goes by. But here we are. So, like I said, last time you saw me and I did a live show, I was in Peoria, Illinois, getting ready to play in Masters Worlds at 2 different courses. And the first 2 days went pretty okay. And then the last 2 days went pretty stinky. And I have to admit that probably around halfway through the round on Thursday, kind of got this feeling that it was not meant to be. Too many weird things happened at the beginning of that 3rd round. Just some bad luck, bad rollaways. Oh, baby, it was bad. So I kind of knew going into Friday's round that the odds of me making the cut, I was still within the cut after 2 days, actually pretty comfortably. Those last 2 rounds killed that. But on Friday, it was pouring rain. The course was a mud bog. It was like walking on ice. What are you going to do? So I did not make the cut once again, just like I did last year. At least this year, I made it through the tournament. Last year, I quit before it was over. I wouldn't necessarily say that I played badly. I just had a lot of bad things happen. Really, at the beginning of that 3rd round, that, it was just a little much. Let's just put it that way. And went into the water, didn't mean to go into the water, missed some putts. It was crazy. So that was that. And that's over. Was hoping for better results, did not get them. And before I go any further, I hope that you will, as you are listening or watching to this, whether live on July 18th, 2022, or if you are listening later or whatever podcast app or YouTube or whatever, if you are watching this, please give it a thumbs up. We have a bunch of viewers right now, but many of you have still not given this live show a thumbs up. You know it's going to be good. Just do it now. Give it a thumbs up on your phone, on your tablet, on your laptop, on your smart TV, wherever you are. Please give this video a thumbs up, and that helps us with the YouTube algorithms. If you're not yet a subscriber to this YouTube channel, why don't you just hit that button right down there? I made it nice and easy for you. And then if you're feeling maybe a little more generous this summer, maybe consider hitting the join button right down here. And for the low price of 10 cents a day, you can get some crazy additional stuff. And just hit the join button. You can find out what those things are. So that was how Masters Worlds went. I was hoping to do a lot better than I did. And I'm still stewing about it. But I'm going to get the chance to redeem myself very quickly this weekend because I signed up for a tournament in Estero. Actually, it's 2 different tournaments, just one rounder. So one round tournament on Saturday, one round tournament on Sunday. And this is at the course in which I won the tournament in my division back in January. So they are having a PDG rated rounds fundraiser down there. And so very early Saturday morning, I will be jumping in my car, getting down there for a 10:30 tee time. Just one round. I'll be staying down there. I have an Airbnb. I'll be staying at the same exact place that I stayed at in January. And then on Sunday, we'll do it all again for one more round at the Estero Community Park. I love that course. I've, I would say I've always played pretty well there, even going back to like 2015. And then I ended up winning earlier this year, which was really nice. So, we'll see how I do. Get right back into the saddle again. And then after that, I'll be playing beginning of August. And then won't be playing again. Maybe Orlando during the Labor Day weekend. And then we got some things scheduled up for September, October. But was a letdown. But I had 2 decent rounds and 2 bad rounds. And I guess you could say at Worlds, I was probably due. I played such great disc golf from January. I won a tournament then. I won 2 other tournaments since then. Came in third at Maximo on a course that's really not friendly to how I play, and really had a chance to win it. Played well there. I was probably due. But it does show me, some things that I need to continue to work on, and that work will start. In fact, I went through today, and that work will start this weekend at Estero. See if I can copy the success that I had there earlier this year. So what's everybody saying? Okay, I did. Hey, everyone. So I glad made it to another 9, Mayor. Hello, Mayor. Sheree says, thank you to everyone for 4,000 views on TikTok. Wow, that is a lot. And yeah, I haven't been able to do a TikTok because the last few weeks we haven't had video to go along with the audio. Unfortunately, for last Friday's Michaela Balle, we could not get Zoom to work with Rick, unfortunately. The good news is that I did an interview yesterday that will play this Friday. I did an interview today that will play next Friday. And both of those, the video came out spectacularly. The audio did. So I'm very excited about that. And yes, that does mean that I've worked ahead. So that's always nice. And I will tell you about those at the appropriate time. But thank you, Sheree, for bringing up TikTok. Yes, we are on TikTok. We've been there for a few months now. And yes, go follow us. Because what I do is I post the video of the beginning, the intro before the music. And then I also play, those 3 questions that I always put in the summary before the interview plays. I put those together into a very tight, they usually end up being about a minute and a half. So I'll be doing that this week. So please be looking for that on TikTok. Probably late Wednesday, I'll do that once I get back to Florida. So what else? Let me pull up my agenda for tonight. So Worlds gave me a new perspective on my game, some things that I need to work on. And, I'm still stewing because I'm very competitive. I hate to lose. And I should have made the cut, but I didn't. But I was probably due for it. So as far as other things, getting to hang out with Dave and his family. Dave lives in Dunlap, Illinois. He lives in a beautiful house. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. I got to spend some time, with him. The most time I've spent with him probably since college, 30 years ago. And got to meet his wife, got to know his wife a little bit better. He was working and I was kind of hanging out. And his wife's name is Young. She's from China. And they've been married, maybe 17 years, something like that. Maybe they got married around 2005, 2004, somewhere in there. And so I got to know her, got to meet his 2 sons, David and Lucas. Got to go to one of Lucas's basketball games, which is fun. Although I have to say it's weird for me as a single guy with no kids to be around so many kids and teenagers and everything. It's always weird. But Dave and I just hung out, did a lot of reminiscing, talking about a bunch of stuff. We watched some cool movies. We watched what was it called? Murder Mystery. It was with Jennifer Aniston and Adam Sandler. We watched that. We're both big Jennifer Aniston fans. Imagine that. And he had not seen the movie Argo with Ben Affleck. So we watched that. And he had not seen that before, but I had a few times, but I was happy to watch it again. So that was good. And we went out to this, he showed me this really fancy part of Peoria, overlooks like the Illinois River. I took a few pictures. I've posted some of them. So it was really cool. I don't know when I'll be seeing him again. Maybe he and his family will come to Florida sometime. I don't see myself going to Illinois again anytime soon. It was just coincidence that the disc golf tournament was right there where he lived. Imagine that. That was really convenient. And I certainly do thank him and his family, the rest of his family, for allowing me to stay there. And I was able to get work done there. It was all very nice. So then, like I said, went to my sister's, Charles's mother's house, and got there on Saturday afternoon, and we just kind of hung out like we usually do, and went to eat, and played this new version of Uno called Uno Flip, which I've not played before. I played that with my sister Diane and Charles's sons, Cole and Bration, and I remember the Cole won once. I forget who. I don't think that I won. I know that Bration and it came down to the two of us, and we played a long time one-on-one before one of us won. So that was fun. And just got to sleep in a spare bedroom there on an air mattress. But as usual, I slept great, and hung out with Diane's husband, Jim, who I'm a big fan of Jim. And so it was just it was a good time to be able, and it was convenient because coming from Illinois over this way, you have to go through Ohio. And so just went up to her house for one night. So it was good to see her. And then, like I said, yesterday I got here. Good to see my dad. He's had me do some things while I was here, looking at his banking a little bit, looking at his printer, a lot of tech stuff, I guess you might say, looking at his credit card statements and making sure everything is on automatic pay. And we went to eat today. Oh my, Cherie, what's that? We went to eat today. We were going to go to this steakhouse. We were going to go to Texas Roadhouse, which is like my favorite place to eat in this area. In fact, when my mother was alive, that's where we would go for my birthday. If I was home back here in Pennsylvania for my birthday, that's where we would go. But we went over there today, and their water wasn't working. I've never heard of this before. So they were not taking any customers. The water wasn't working. I don't know what was going on. So we ended up going to this Chinese buffet instead, and I'm here to tell you, we got our money. At least I got my money's worth, even though Dad paid. I got my money's worth. And it was excellent. It was really, really good. Really, really good right here in the Butler area. And so we had a good time with that. I went and threw today over to soccer field near to where my father lives. I threw about an hour. It was, my dad watched. He was picking up the discs for me and putting them in a pile. So when I would get down to them, I'd just have to throw them back the other way. It was kind of overcast. It was a good time to throw. Just kind of working out the kinks, kind of, throwing out some of the frustration that I still have. And I'm sure when I go to see my sports psychologist a week from now, I'll probably still be stewing. It'll depend, of course, how I play this coming weekend. But so that's what we did today, and did that interview today, which went well. Did an interview yesterday. And of course, I'm doing the live show right now. And tomorrow I'll hop in the car and head back to Florida. So that's kind of what has been going on with me since you saw me last. Did a lot of driving. Like I said, 8 hours to my sister's, about an hour drive from my sister's to here. And then it'll be about 16 some hours back to Florida, heading down through West Virginia, then Virginia, North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia, and then Florida. And once you get into Florida, I'm not even close to being home. It's still like, once you get into Florida, it's still like another 4.5 hour drive or something. But I've done that drive many times now, so I'm used to it. Not sure what I'm going to be listening to. Haven't worked that out yet. When I drove up to Dave's, I ended up listening/watching some disc golf that was playing live. And then I had a couple podcasts that I wanted to listen to, the Find Jody podcast, then the podcast regarding the disappearance of Joshua Guimond. I listened to that. So I really didn't listen to any albums like I planned to do. You never know what you're going to do until you get on the road. There's hope for change. Question for later. Michaela Balle interview. Things got awkward and personal at 55:20 mark, when you asked the father why his relationship ended with the mother, why do you think? Well, there's hope, and thank you, There's Hope. You are very generous. What There's Hope has done is you can contribute to Unfound monetarily by hitting that little gray square button with the $sign in the middle. That's the super chat. If you'd like to contribute monetarily, of course, we would deeply appreciate that. There's hope. Was it necessary? It was. You have to understand something. There's hope. I'm willing to avoid touchy family topics. I am. But being that a major point of the entire interview was that Michaela's mother did not permit Rick to talk to Michaela. At some point, I have to ask that. What exactly is going on there? Now, he doesn't have to answer, but I think in my position, that's my job to do that. If it had not played a part in the entire discussion, then I wouldn't have asked it. Sometimes I just have to ask questions that because of my position. And if you've probably heard me say that sometimes, I just have to ask. That doesn't mean you have to answer, and I won't be mad if you don't. But I think to keep my reporter integrity going, and I think that sometimes you have to ask those questions. You realize that you can't make people answer them. And was it awkward? I guess it was, but I would not say it was awkward because of me. And in fact, I don't think it's awkward because of Rick. I think it's awkward because of her. And it's also, and maybe if I had not tried to contact Michaela's mother as much as I have over the last 4 years, then it might not have even popped up as a question. But given that she never did respond to me, even though she has done media appearances, then I gotta start wondering what's going on. I don't think she had anything to do with Michaela's disappearance. But I think, he obviously didn't want to get into it, but I thought it was, I think I had a responsibility to ask the question. He doesn't have to answer it. Why did you do that? Was it necessary? Yeah, it was. Because here's what I think I know is that you could say that if we really wanted to get hindsight 2020, maybe if Rick and the mother had a relationship over the last, those first 16 years, maybe Michaela doesn't go missing. Maybe. I don't know. So we just don't know. And if we knew what happened to Michaela, we could just go solve this disappearance right now. But what if she turns up alive one of these days and wants to talk about why she went missing, and it was because of the relationship that her mother and father that they never had, because they didn't have that, and she felt her home was broken or something. I just thought I had a responsibility to ask it. Not that I can read any of your minds, but my responsibility is to ask the questions that I think all of you would if you were in my position. That's what I'm trying to do. And I think many of you, probably that was on your mind. That's the way I look at it as well. And you should know that Michaela's mother has kind of done this with the other men who are the father of her children as well. No, maybe they're all bad guys. I don't know. So there's that. So that's why I did it. I just have a responsibility to do that. But I oftentimes, when I ask questions like that, I realize probably I'm not going to get an answer, but I got to ask. You got to ask. Mayor, oh, that's weird about Water Island. A bunch of family that live in Greensburg, PA, I think. I don't know. This, that was the plan. Mayor, I want to check out the Joshua Guimond page, or however you spell it. That's a very unusual story where there's a podcast right now, Mayor, that it's called Simply Vanished. It's not The Vanished with Marissa. It's not Up and Vanished with Payne Lindsay. It's called Simply Vanished with this, the host is Joshua Newville. So you can find that it's on Spotify and elsewhere. Mayor says, I think it was definitely a good and needed thing for you to at least try. You ventured into the area and you had a choice. I agree with you. Odd situation. It's odd. Yeah. Thank you for understanding. There's hope. Jill, good to see you. Yo to you. I was certainly trying to find out more about the mom bait. Rick didn't want to talk about it. Like I said, I don't blame him. I'm not mad at him or angry or sad or disappointed or anything. I just had to ask the question. Sweet. I agree, Hope. If we were going to dig, I would have liked to hear more about Grandpa and Grandma's relationship. And I think that would probably, once again, Sweet Gator, maybe even something more that Rick even more didn't want to talk about or doesn't know. There's Hope says, on a lighter note, a disc golf course just opened 3 miles from me. Yeah, you're going to have to get into it now. There's no avoiding that now. There's Hope. You're going to have to go play. It's a great game. Okay, so let's get into the body, the true crime part of this show tonight, whether it's you're watching live or listening now that this live show is on the podcast feed. You should know that I'm thinking about turning this into its own podcast feed come September. So be aware of that. So being that we've already talked quite a bit, or I have talked quite a bit about Michaela's episode and a particular question that I asked Rick, let's go to the Michaela Balle poll. I start here every week when we get to this part, the true crime part of the show, that I always start off with this poll, a poll that I post in the discussion group just to get an idea of everybody's opinions. You know that I rarely make my opinions public, but I asked in the discussion group, I gave everybody, I think it was 4 different options. Did Michaela go off to start a new life? Was she sex trafficked? Was she lured by somebody? What do you think happened? And in the discussion group, the overwhelmingly most popular choice was that she was lured and abducted and, unfortunately, very sadly, probably murdered. That was the overwhelming choice. 90-some percent of the respondents, that was the choice. You should know in the think tank that we do every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. Eastern. If you want to get into the think tank, you must be a Patreon supporter at the $12 a month level or above. Please check that out at patreon.com/Unfound Podcast. If you'd like to be a part of a group that is like no other in the world, where we discuss disappearances in depth, and those items that we talk about, that information is brought back to the guests, so they have some things to think about, maybe new avenues of inquiry. That is the Unfound Think Tank, but it's very, very private, and you can only get into it if you are a Patreon supporter at the $12 a month level or above. So we have been doing that. That started at the beginning of 2019, so we're like on 3.5 years, and everybody loves it. So the think tank, for once, agreed with the discussion group that she was lured and abducted. Not everybody thought that, but a large majority of the people think that's what happened. Me, I've not written the blog because of all the driving and disc golfing and everything. I haven't been able to write it yet. Probably not going to get done until later this week. But I have to tell you, I'm not so sure. I think that's probably the conclusion I'm going to come to. I don't know how I'm going to get to that conclusion right yet. There are things about, just facts about her disappearance, that it doesn't seem like it's a clear-cut lured and abducted situation. Being that she was allowed to roam around on her own for all those hours, she wasn't trying to hide from anybody. Doesn't look like she was being followed. She was right out there in the open. I mean, for all she knew, she could have run into people who she knew that day. That didn't seem to bother her. Just don't think that it's that clear cut that she was lured and abducted. I mean, if she was lured, why didn't she just get picked up right away? So these are things I'm thinking about. I'm lucky maybe that I have a few more days to think about it, and I have a long drive back to Florida to think about it before I write whatever I'm going to write. But when I do write it, it'll be at patreon.com/unfound podcast, and I can guarantee you that it will be at least 3,000 words in length. And yes, I will probably write a little bit more about video. You know, many times it's not as helpful as we think it should be. So once again, to go through that, the discussion group, overwhelmingly the people that answered the poll, said that she was lured and abducted. The think tank, for the most part, said that she was lured and abducted. Me, I'm not so sure. Mayor says, that is what I think happened. That's my thoughts, pretty much. Lured and abducted. Okay, Mayor, thank you. Hey, Tech Death, what's up with you? Tech Death hippie, how are you tonight? Thanks for tuning in. There's hope. I agree with the lured and abducted too, but if so, why would she ask a perfect stranger for a hotel room? I agree with you. The real, I can't remember if this has been established or not, but had she ever left school and done her own thing all day before? Was it wildly out of character? The real, I don't think anybody would be surprised if she skipped school before. A lot of high school students do. But I'm not sure if we could talk to her mother. I'm not sure if Rick it would be the expert on that. Her mother would be, or maybe her friends would be, and they're not talking. Mayor, I've been thinking about Patreon think tank. Yes, no definite evidence of that. Or sex trafficking. It is a very odd case, seriously. The hotel thing made me wonder for sure. So weird. Mayor, we would love to have you in the think tank. You should think about it, seriously consider it. Your opinions, instead of just maybe posting, maybe you go places and write your opinions. Well, in the think tank, your opinions actually mean something because that kind of stuff goes directly back to the guest. So consider it. You're good practicing guitar while I listen. What are you practicing? Your scales, your chords, any particular songs? Tech Death, let us know. And the real asking a stranger for help with a hotel room was kind of brazen. It was, like I said, not your usual type of lured and abduction, if that's what it was. So that's why it has me thinking, and I'm going to have to come up with a fairly logical argument for whatever I write about at patreon.com when I do that later this week. Okay, so that was the Michaela Balle poll. I should say one more thing. My perception is that her disappearance is one of the most well-known in Canada. Probably Madison Scott's is way up there. Maybe in Ryan Stuka's from like 2 months ago. It certainly is very well-known too. But Michaela Balle's, at least my perception as an American, is that it's fairly well-known too. And I'm pretty sure before the summer is over, we'll be going to Canada again. Pretty sure. Fairly sure. Almost totally sure. We'll be going back to Canada. Tex says, sweep arpeggios and dime bag solos. Man, you must be way more talented than I am. Robert, what's going on? I'm doing good, Robert. Thanks for asking. How are you? Good to see you. Thanks for making some time on this Monday night, wherever you may be. I appreciate it. Let's move on to this. Charles, thank you. Nephew Charles with the emojis and the rock-ons. Yes, that's nicely done. Moving on. I got to meet Jody Walsh last Wednesday. I finished my second round of disc golf at Worlds, and I went and met her at a Cracker Barrel in Ottawa, Illinois. And she was with her son, who I got to meet. And we had a great dinner, great talk. Going to Cracker Barrel, as I was telling Jody, reminds me so much of my mother. Cracker Barrel was one of my favorite, one of my mother's favorite places. Dad and I still joke about how we would always stop at Cracker Barrel in Meadville, Pennsylvania, when we would be driving to Canada. That's where we would get breakfast. And my mother wouldn't even make it to our seat. She'd tell my dad what she wanted. If she wanted coffee or tea, whatever she was going to drink, she already knew what she wanted to eat. She told my dad to order it, and she would just hang out in the store until the food came. That was my mother. So it was one of her favorite places to shop and eat. And so when we ended up meeting there, and it was a place I picked out, it was really hard to find a place between Chicago and Peoria that had some like reliable, good restaurant or something. So I felt very lucky to find the Cracker Barrel, but we had a great discussion. If you don't know, Cracker Barrel, or Jody, Jody is the sister of Robin Abrams, who went missing in Illinois in 1990. Maybe if you're somewhat new to Unfound, you aren't familiar with Jody, but she was, we covered Robin's disappearance maybe in the first 10 episodes of Unfound, so going back to 2016. So she was one of those like first 10 interviews I ever did for Unfound. And there is a strong belief that law enforcement was involved in her disappearance. I'm not going to get into all of the facts now, but maybe if you remember just last year, was it last year? It's hard. Time goes by so fast. You will remember in one of the Dr. Telesco shows that she and I, that was the topic. Robin Abrams' disappearance was a topic. We made it the topic for one of those shows that I did with Dr. Telesco. And you may remember that me asking Dr. Telesco about, being a police officer and being put in a very difficult position where maybe some officers want to do something that is against the law. And how do you handle that as a police officer? So Dr. Telesco and I had that discussion. And we did revisit, being that we just revisited Craig Freer's disappearance a couple weeks ago. I also did a revisiting of Robin's disappearance, I think at the end of 2020. And if you remember, I had a new interview with a guy who was in the Will County Sheriff's Office as a deputy at the time of her disappearance. He knew Robin. And so I got to interview him. Maybe some of you remember that now. So being that I knew that I was going to Illinois, and Jody is one of those first people that I've known like almost 6 years now, I wanted to make the time to go see her, and I'm glad that we were able to get together. We had a great time. Her son was fantastic, very cool guy, Navy veteran. We started talking a little bit about the Navy and some history. And even though I've never been in the military, I kind of know a lot about ships and dates and battles and things. So we talked a little bit about that. And so it was a really good time. I'm glad I made the time. And Robin's disappearance is only one of 2 disappearances that we've covered from Illinois. The other one, of course, being Jesse Ross. But the thing about Jesse Ross's is that his family doesn't live in Illinois. They were from Missouri or Kansas. So maybe one day I'll get to meet them too. But so of those disappearances, there's only one in which the family still lives in Illinois. And we were able to make that happen. I was really excited to do that. Charles says, I love Cracker Barrel too. Well, Charles, everybody should take that very seriously. Charles is a very good cook. He has worked in the food industry for a long time now. So if he says he loves Cracker Barrel, if you haven't tried it, maybe you should go check it out. There's some chicken and dumplings. are great at Cracker Barrel. I actually had the fried chicken. Yeah, the breakfast menu. Cracker Barrel has awesome women's clothes. Mom has good taste in food and clothing. She certainly did. Mayor also giving a thumbs up to Cracker Barrel. Cracker Barrel, Cracker Barrel. Oh, geez, that's cool. Yeah. So everybody's loving Cracker Barrel. That's why I guess it's in business. Everybody loves it so much. And there's so many, driving from Florida to Illinois, there's many of those Cracker Barrels that are right off the interstates. And I'm sure going to Florida, I'll see a whole bunch of Cracker Barrel signs as I head back to Florida as well. But there are certainly quite a few of them. And I understand why. I like it too. Tech Death, you got to check out Cracker Barrel if you can. All right, moving on. Let's answer a question, and then I'm going to tell you a very funny disc golf / unfound story. Yes, more disc golf stories, but it does have something to do with Unfound. But I'm going to answer a question right now, and it comes from Jasmine, who's in here tonight. Jasmine asks, now I think many of you are going to know part of the answer to this question, but you're maybe not going to know the other answer. Jasmine asked me, what one band and one solo musician each could you listen to for the rest of your life? Well, I don't think anybody will be surprised that my answer to the one band would, of course, be Iron Maiden. And it certainly helps that they've been around for a long time. They have a ton of albums. They have a ton of songs, a ton of B-sides, and there's still music probably by Iron Maiden that I've not gotten to yet. So if I was stuck on a deserted island and it was one band, it would certainly be Iron Maiden. I don't think anybody's surprised by that. As far as one solo musician, this goes kind of along with driving from Florida to Illinois. Like I said, I had some things I wanted to listen to. I listened / watched to some disc golf. There was a major tournament that was being played, so I was watching that. And I listened, like I said, to those two podcasts. Well, I listened to another podcast that is not true crime. And I've talked about this podcast before. It's called Political Beats. It doesn't have anything to do with politics, although they have political reporters on there. But what they do is they talk about music. And I got to finally listen to the third part of this podcast. And Eli Lake, who is a well-known political reporter, was on with two music guys. And Eli Lake wanted to talk about the musician Prince. And Prince has such a huge catalog of music, late 70s to his death, that they divided it up into 3 sections. So it was kind of like the beginning till like after Purple Rain, and then after Purple Rain until like the mid-90s, and then mid-90s to the end of his career. They split it up, and each of these is like 3 hours long or something. So I finally got to listen to part 3, and it's fantastic. But he would be my solo musician. The band would be Iron Maiden. And if it's just a solo artist, and I realized that Prince had all this big band, but you have to remember, when it comes to the albums, Prince played most of the instruments on those albums. Most people don't realize that. A lot of the keyboards, drums, guitars, everything, he played most of the instruments himself. So he was, even though he had the Revolution, the Next Generation band and all of that, he really was a solo musician when it came to creating the music and putting it on the album or CD or whatever, whatever you want to say, the cassette. So those would be my choices. Iron Maiden as a band and Prince as a solo musician. I already see some people answering this. Tech Des says Guns N' Roses. I have nothing against Guns N' Roses, Tech Death. I don't know if they have enough music, though. And the truth is, some of their music, I got to say, is not that good, in my opinion. Like, there's a lot of songs like on Use Your Illusion 1 and 2 that I'm just not into. So, but certainly overall, you can't complain about them. Charles is going with Black Sabbath. Can't really argue with that too much. It's maybe, I like some Black Sabbath. Charles just sometimes is a little dark for me. Tech Deaths would be Jason Baker, who is a guitar soloist, prodigy type of player. Charles agrees with my Prince pick, though. Thank you, Charles. Yes, Valerie, you would choose Iron Maiden. You choose Iron Man, and we all know. Yes, Valerie, of course, everybody knows that. Okay, Use Your Illusion 1 and 2 is the ultimate masterpiece for you, Wild Desert Island. Wow. Then I got to say, Tech Death, probably your taste and my taste, probably, although it's close, are certainly not the same. But Jasmine, that is the answer to that question. If anybody else wants to get in with their one band and one solo musician, please feel free to do that as you are listening or watching to the rest of the show tonight. Thank you, Jasmine, for that question. Jasmine says, Carrie Underwood. Oh my, Jasmine. I don't do country music. So, Jasmine, you go do you. Iron Maiden 2. Okay, I got you, Tech Death. Great. All right, so I have a story for you. Pretty good story. And I don't know if she is going to be watching this or not, but I have to tell this story. This happened on Wednesday at the disc golf tournament. Now, the first round, everybody is placed in their groups with tee times randomly. And weirdly, I got to play the first round with a very good friend of mine from Clearwater, Trevor. And he's a very good player. He only beat me by 2 strokes in the first round, which I thought was pretty good. But anyway, but on Tuesday, that's when they start putting the groups according to your scores. So in the second round, I am grouped with 3 other guys who had similar scores, if not the same score that I did. And so we get there, and like I said, I'm playing what's MA 50, so men between the ages of 50 and 54. And the one guy, his first name, I believe, was Jeff, I think. He was there, and his wife was his caddy. She was following along with him as we played. And I forget when we teed off, but it was it was kind of late morning or early afternoon, somewhere in there. And the round just was going as it does, kind of slow, kind of fast, a few backups here and there. Nobody really playing over their head, and I was playing okay, not great, okay. And I had talked to the other guys, of course, in my group. I had talked to this guy's wife who was following us around, hanging out with the group. And you should know that's not unusual. I've played many rounds where girlfriends or wives go along with the group. And in fact, my brother Brian, Charles's uncle, has gone to tournaments with me and hung out and walked around and offered support and all of that. So it's not unusual at all. But during the course of this walk, what I do for a living, this podcast never comes up, although I am wearing an Unfound hat. But it never comes up. Rarely has anybody ever asked me in a round, well, Ed, what do you do? And I don't bring it up. So we get to basket number 14, and it's fairly difficult basket, and there's a huge backup. There's like a couple groups waiting there, so we have to wait. So I'm just standing there, just minding my own business. It's just like any other wait that I've ever experienced in my life of playing disc golf, and backups are not unusual for disc golf tournaments, especially when it comes to difficult baskets. And it was a par 4, and it was very narrow, and discs were hitting trees and flying all over the place. So this woman, her name is Kelly. I just talked to her a little bit, not a lot to that point. She asks me, how is your stay, going here in the period or area? I'm like, oh, it's going good. I'm staying with, this friend of mine who I haven't seen in a few years, and we went to college together. And then she said something, and I can't specifically remember what it was, but it revealed to me that maybe she knew me a little better than I thought. I wasn't creeped out about it, but I started thinking, did I say something like at the beginning of the round or something um during the round about this that she would know that? And I forget exactly what it was, but it certainly was something that um just didn't think it's something I said, but I was open to the idea. And so I looked at her and I was like, yeah, I was like, yeah, how do you know that? And that's when she revealed to me that she has been a listener of Unfound for like 3 years. And I was like, really? And so we started, while we were standing there waiting to tee off, and it was a while, it must have been 20 minutes. We started talking about the podcast and how she's big into true crime podcasts. And about 3 years ago, she found it somehow on Spotify or wherever. And she says now she's listened to every episode. I was like, fantastic. And I had a really good chuckle. And she even said something, was like, I really didn't know how to bring it up. And you're playing here. I don't want to get you off a game. I don't want to do this. But, I just don't think she could resist, bringing it up, being that we were just standing there. And she even admitted to me, and maybe she's listening to this or watching this or whatever. I'm not going to reveal her last name or anything. But she told me that she knew, of course, being that I talk about disc golf maybe during the podcast or wherever, she knew I was going to Worlds. She knew her husband was going to Worlds. And she was actually hoping that her husband and myself would get paired up in a group so she could meet me. And then once again, I'm not creeped out about this at all. And so when she said she saw on Tuesday night, when the pairings came out for the next day for Wednesday, when she found out that her husband and I were going to be in the same group together, she admitted she got all giddy, all excited, everything else. And it was not creepy at all. And we had a great discussion. I was not weirded out about it. I did end up making a triple bogey on that next coming basket, but not her fault. All of my fault. But actually, after that, I played okay for the rest of the round, I guess. But it was just, you just never know. And, I'm not a famous person. I'm not. I do this show. I do the podcast. I know, of course, Unfound has a lot of listeners, a lot of viewers. And really, this is the third time that's happened, where a girlfriend or a wife of some guy I was playing with came up to me before a round, or I don't know if it's ever happened in the middle of a round, but before or after, and has come up to me and said, "You're that podcaster. I know you. I listen to your podcast. I think what you do is fantastic," and everything. So this is like the third time now. And I would still say that I'm not used to it. It's still a little bit of a mind boggler to me personally. I realize that Unfound has listeners. Of course, we have the real Capelia, who is a think tank member who often, I don't know if she is the real. Are you in here tonight? Yeah, you're in here. She's in Australia. I talk once in a while to a listener who is in Ireland. Maybe a few weeks ago when we did the July 4th show early, we had a guy on there from Germany. This podcast, the live show, goes all over the world. But still, I think it's still a little weird to me when I do run into some stranger who watches the live show or listens to the podcast. And it's still very unique to me. And maybe that's what keeps me grounded or something. I don't know. But it also, any time this has happened, what's very important to me is that I hope that I come across the way they would think. Hello, Morgan. There you go. UK here. There you go. Hello, UK. There's somebody from the United Kingdom. See, that's what I'm saying. You just never know when we've had people from Hong Kong, France. I know that going back to the Podomatic days, where I could look at the map of the world and see where downloads were happening. We have downloads in Ethiopia, in Kenya, everywhere. Spotify doesn't give me that particular statistic, but I just hope one of those things, you always worry about meeting people who, if you follow their show, you follow their podcast. Being that we're just talking about music, you're meeting some musician that you love, and then you meet that person, and it's like a kind of a letdown, whether they're not very interesting, or they're rude, or they're on drugs, or they're drunk, or whatever else, and it kind of lets you down. And so I'm hoping when I have encountered listeners randomly, like what happened here, that I'm the person they expect. You do not know how important that is to me. That, and I'm just being myself, the person that they hear on the podcast, that they see on the live show. That's who I'd like to think that is who I am in person. And I hope that Kelly came away from our interaction with that. I hope she did. Once again, just me. I'm just being me, and I just hope that I can be me, and people say, "Yeah, that he's a good guy." So I hope she enjoyed our talk, our interaction, as much as I did. And it, once again, I think she, felt leery about doing it. She didn't want to come across as some stalker or something like that. And she did not. I was not weirded out about it at all. It was a little weird right in those first few seconds, but then I completely understood it, and we had a great conversation. And in fact, I ran into her. We coincidentally parked beside each other the next day at the other course. And she and her husband do wood engraving, like with lasers or something. And I gave her my address, and she's going to be making a wood, what we call mini disc, like they're like about this big. And it may have like my name and the Unfound logo or something on it. And she's going to send it to me. And so when she does, when I get it, I will surely show it to all of you. So it was very cool. I don't go to Crime Con or any of these true crime conventions, and many of you know the reasons that I don't. I want to tell you that the reason I don't go is not because I don't want to meet listeners or anything like that. It's not that reason. It's the reason I don't go to those things is because of who puts it on and the whole entertainment side of that I'm just not into. It's not because listeners are going to be there, viewers are going to be there. It's none of that. I think that I don't think I've ever avoided running into a listener or meeting up. And in fact, I have. I've talked about earlier this year. I met a couple came over to my building. I met them downstairs, signed a book for them. And I met another listener to talk about the Tom Brown disappearance. So I've done these things. I met another listener and her husband from Michigan. They came down. We got together. I've certainly met these people. So I never want any of you to think that I don't go to Crime Con because of that. But it was good. And I ran into her the next day. We had another great conversation. And I think her husband was teeing off before I did. And I did see him again, I think, on Friday, but I did not see her again. But it was all good. So I thought you might enjoy that story, and it's probably going to happen again. I'm not saying it'll happen again this year, but being that it's happened like maybe 3 times in the last 2 years, got to believe that it's going to happen again sometime soon. Now, you should know all these people have been women. None of them have been men. There hasn't been any disc golfer who I've been in a group with. He goes, "Oh, yeah, I listen to your podcast, Ed." It's been all women. Maybe that shouldn't surprise me since Unfound's audience is 80% women, and that's true across all true crime shows and podcasts and everything. So there's that story for you. And Kelly, if you're watching this or listening to this later, I really enjoyed our interaction. It had a great talk. You were not creepy at all, and it was a pleasure to meet both you and your husband. Black Sabbath was played in the new Thor movie. I haven't seen the new Thor movie. Do not ruin it for me, Mayor. I plan to see it sometime. But yes, Black Sabbath in the next. Maybe that shouldn't be a surprise given that there's been rock music in the previous movies. There you go. And there's UK. Carrie says, "Hi, friends. Was video chatting grand. Did you get to see Bentley, Carrie? That's what we all want to know. Did you get to see Bentley?" Morgan says, "I rarely catch a live, but I do listen to the podcast often." Thank you, Morgan. Carrie, CrimeCon and such is about sensationalism. That's true. There's hope. That's a cool story. You are an awesome person. Oh, behave. There's hope. Thanks. Carrie, you went to Canadian to support a family. I did that too. Thank you for reminding me, Carrie. Thank you, Morgan. Hopefully we'll see him on the 28th. Carrie, I'm hoping you get to see your grandbaby Bentley very, very soon. So I thought you might enjoy that story. And I think what I'm saying also is, of course, all of you in the audience, you are listeners and viewers. And should we ever run into each other someplace, don't be hesitant. I think I'm a fairly easygoing guy, although I'm a very private guy. As I've said, that I live alone. I like to work alone. I don't go out in public that much, but that doesn't mean I'm afraid of people or anything. So I just was so humbled the way she kind of introduced herself and everything. And I think the whole time I talked to her, I couldn't wipe the smile off my face. So there you go. Moving on. Amanda Fravel is, and I know this is a disappearance that is very close to my assistant Cherise, the administrator, the moderator for this live show, very close to her heart. That Amanda Fravel's disappearance is getting some Dateline attention. I know somebody even posted in the group about her disappearance and how it's on the Dateline website now. And that's really good. If some of you don't know, this is a disappearance that was covered in the summer of 2018. In fact, we covered Amanda Fravel's disappearance right after Tom Brown's. And this is a disappearance from Las Vegas, 1986. She had moved there, and allegedly she was going from her apartment to meet her boyfriend. His name is Xavier. And allegedly she never made it there. And there were a lot of notes that were taken at the time. I had published those notes back in 2018. And I know that Cherie has done some work on that behind the scenes, has coordinated with Amanda's sister, Melissa, who was the guest way back then. 4 years ago, it's hard to believe. But it's good that Amanda has not been forgotten. Still not sure what to make of that disappearance. She had this roommate, Lee Franks, who we've still not been able to track down all these years later. Not sure who he was. Was that even his real name? We don't know. But I also have to admit that, if I can say this, Cherie, is that still kind of suspicious of Amanda's boyfriend at the time, Xavier, who's still alive, although he has some health issues. And I talked to him back then, and the concern I have regarding him is that if you were to go to his Facebook page, he does a lot of reminiscing about the 1980s. And he has a lot of pictures about girls he dated back then. Amanda's picture is not on there. And in fact, he has them almost like lined up, well, like 81 to 83, this girl, 80. But when it gets to the years that he was dating Amanda, there's nothing there. And then he skips over her era to like pictures of the next girl. No pictures of Amanda at all. It concerns me. What are the odds? So, in his story is that she was supposed to come over. She never showed up, and instead, when she didn't show up, he went out with some other girl. That was his story. That's what he told me 4 years ago. So there's that. But it's getting some good attention on Dateline. Given that I used to live in Las Vegas, this is one that kind of speaks to me. Even though I didn't move there until like 12 years after she went missing. So it's still unsolved. And where is she? I don't know. Valerie, thank you for the compliment. You're very kind. It makes me happy too, Cherie, and it is very odd. So Amanda Fravel, if you've not listened to that episode yet, it is on Spotify. It is on iTunes. You can find it on our website, theunfoundpodcast.com. You can also find it here right on this YouTube channel. And I think I posted some pictures of Amanda for that video. And so if you're thinking about going back, if you're new to Unfound and you're checking out old episodes for the first time, maybe that's a good place to start. Or maybe you just want to start at the beginning back in 2016. I can't argue with that either. But given that Amanda's disappearance is getting some new attention, maybe it's a good time to check that one out. And I interviewed her sister, Melissa. Moving on. There is a new missing docu-series on Hulu. I do not have a subscription, so I've not been able to watch this show. Maybe some of you had. It's just called Missing. And if some of you have seen it or would like to comment on it, do so in the chat right now. I'd love to hear some of your responses, what you think about it so far. I think there may be 3 episodes in. And strangely enough, I think they've done 3 episodes, and 2 of them have been unfound disappearances. And also, I don't know if this is a thing or they're just only covering disappearances from the New York area. But the first episode was Leanne Hosberg, which is, of course, a disappearance we covered earlier this year. 14-year-old girl went missing. You'll remember her father was the guest, and he talked about how they thought she was going to school, but instead she went down and seemingly got a limo to some other part of town. You'll remember that she was friends with this guy that was much older than she was, and that guy's back, Cherie. And so I don't know if they're just covering New York disappearances because they covered Leanne Hosberg's, and they also covered Chelsea Kobo's, which is another disappearance, another New York disappearance, another unfound disappearance, and from the New York area. And I believe they're also going to cover Cassandra Ramirez's disappearance, which once again is another New York City disappearance. So if anybody has watched this or has Hulu, can check this out for me. Are they only doing New York City disappearance? I mean, there are plenty there. I mean, I can't give them a hard time about it. There's certainly a lot of disappearances there. But also in looking at all of the pictures of the missing people they're going to cover, they all also seem to be all females. Once again, their show. But I'd like to know a little bit more about this. Cherie is saying she thinks that it's New York and New Jersey. Okay. And like I said, Sheree, it seems to me that it's all women, no men. Because they have the pictures up seemingly of all the disappearances that they're going to eventually cover. My perception is like about 15 pictures there, and they all look to be women or girls. So if anybody has Hulu, has watched this, knows anything about this, let me know. Or if you have Hulu and didn't even know that this was going on, maybe you want to check it out. If you don't want, likewise, if you're new to Unfound and the names Leon Hosberg, Cassandra Ramirez, and Chelsea Cobo don't ring a bell to you, those are 3 episodes that we've done, 3 disappearances that we've covered. My opinion is that Chelsea's and Cassandra's are very similar. Very, very similar. Whereas Leanne's, she was younger than those 2. She was not an adult, unlike Chelsea and Cassandra. Cassandra and Chelsea had some things going on. Maybe a couple questionable life choices that they had made. But Leanne was only 14. She was underage, and seemingly ran away. I'm not saying there wasn't foul play. I'm not saying that she wasn't lured. Maybe this is Michaela Balle's situation, but hers is a little different than the other 2. Paula says, "What's it called?" It's just called Missing. That's all it's called, Missing. Sheree is saying it's 20-25 minutes. I'm not impressed, honestly. Okay. Sheree. So Sheree, it seems to me, is maybe giving it a thumbs down. We know that any attention is good attention. But Sheree is saying, I'm glad that cases are getting attention, but disappointed in the reporting. Seems to be highlighting only, which is sad because they have access to the family. Yeah. Why are these episodes only 20-25 minutes if they have access to the family? What's going on there? And it's on Hulu, so they can make the episodes as long as they want. Frustrating. So if you have Hulu, maybe you want to check it out. And if you're not familiar with those disappearances, Chelsea Cobo's, Leon Hosberg's, Cassandra Ramirez's, those are previous episodes. Leon's was just early this year. Chelsea's was maybe last year or maybe going back to 2020. And then Cassandra's was further back than that. Although it was certainly since 2019. I remember interviewing her mother. It was certainly after I moved to Clearwater Beach. So those are all episodes that came out in the past about 3 years. Spleen, what's going on? I was just thinking to myself, where is Spleen girl? And there she is. Good to see you, Spleen. What's going on? Thanks for getting in tonight. We only have about 50 minutes to go, but it's always good to see you. Thanks for checking in. Let's go to the other question that I got tonight. And technically, I didn't get this question as for this live show, but somebody posted this in the discussion group. And it's a good question just on how we do things and what is the standard for a disappearance. So I thought that it would be a good question for this live show. So I'm going to read it right now. And it was posted by Anna, A-N-N-A. Will Unfound do an episode on a case where there is evidence that the victim is dead, however, the body hasn't been found? And it goes on to say, I have a case suggestion fitting this description. I'd like to get some awareness to this as I haven't found one podcast on it. If not, who would be this more appropriate to suggest this to? Well, you should know that I told Anna that I gave her my email and that she should email me or whoever should email me. Now, as the answer to your question, will Unfound do an episode on a case where there's evidence that the victim is dead, however, the body hasn't been found? That's an absolute yes. We have done that. In fact, at least a few times. We could say certainly one that comes to mind is Patty Actions. That's from way back from 1979, but it's also a Clearwater, Florida disappearance. But if you will all remember, when her car was found, there was blood all over the inside of it. Unfortunately, certainly Patty is deceased. Her remains have still not been found. Certainly murdered, not sure by who, but certainly there were signs that she was deceased. And yes, we covered her disappearance and had her sister on as a guest going way back to 2017. Another one might be Jody Huisentruit. Now, I would not say that there was necessarily any evidence that the victim is dead, but there's certainly evidence that she was attacked. And we might just infer, unfortunately, that Jody Huisentruit ended up deceased. Maybe not that day, but eventually. So that would be another situation where, yes, we covered that disappearance. Absolutely. We might also think about Linda K. Carroll from the Panhandle of Florida, where she went missing from a home that she was living in. I think she was just maybe renting. And there were signs of violence inside of it. And there were signs that she had been dragged out of her house. And in fact, that pieces of her hair and scalp, it looked like her head, she hit her head against the door jamb and it kind of ripped out some of her hair. Her hair was caught in the door jamb. Certainly signs of violence there. The belief is that she was also murdered, presumably by her estranged husband. She was trying to get away from him. And the belief is that he went from where he was living, Mississippi or Tennessee or wherever, drove down there with their children and went to her house and attacked her and killed her and disposed of her somewhere. So certainly we do that. The where I draw the line, I'm of course the one that makes all the ultimate decisions. Where I draw the line is if a full body has been found, if bones that have been identified as being the missing persons has been found, I really don't get into that. Maybe the exception to that was when I interviewed Steve Pankey, but as I continue to state, that was a unique situation. He was a suspect who came to me, and I felt obligated to interview him because I am a reporter. He wanted to be interviewed. He was a suspect in a disappearance that ended up being a murder when Jolene Matthews' remains were found. So it was a missing persons case for 35 years. And so I ultimately made the decision to talk to him, even though Janelle's remains had been found. Very unique situation. It may happen again if some suspect wants to be interviewed in the way that I interviewed Steve Pankey with all the same rules and everything. I guess I could see that happening. I guess I could. Spleen says, "Ugh, I get so depressed thinking about kids who witness horrible crimes, especially against their moms and dads." Well, if you're talking about Linda K. Carroll, Spleen, sometime after that episode came out, I got to speak to Linda K. Carroll's daughter. And she will tell you that she seems to remember that night. The problem is that she was so young, it very well could be that she is just maybe remembering some kind of dream and not actually, being a party to her father, bringing a body or a bag into the car and then going somewhere. Because she talked to me about this. But her memory is very, very cloudy because she was very, very young. I forget her exact age, but it's right in that age where we know that, the human memory is just not reliable, getting to that 4 or 5-year-old area somewhere in there. So I'm still not sure if she witnessed anything or not. But certainly there have been murders, there have been disappearances where children certainly did witness something and remember it, because they're old enough to remember it for the rest of their lives and to the present day. So true. That does happen. Now, Linda K. Carroll had a son who was even younger than the daughter, and he was certainly too young to ever remember anything. But the daughter talked to me about images that are in her head, but she is still not sure if they are reality or not. So once again, Anna, if you're out there, if you're listening, watching, you're catching this as a podcast, that's what we do. We will cover disappearances where even though there are signs of violence, but for the most part, as everybody knows who has been following Unfound for a while, those kinds of disappearances are rare. We have not covered a lot of disappearances where there's signs of violence and blood. We rarely talk about forensics and blood at a scene or anything. Very, very rarely. So, how many have we covered like that? Maybe 12? out of 260. Not very common. And in fact, I would say that's usually with most disappearances, you don't have any forensics or any signs of violence or anything like that. Deborah says she should go under hypnosis. Deborah, I think she did. I think, I don't know if that stuff really works anyway, Deborah, but I think she did. I don't think I took any notes from my talk with her, but I think that she did. All right, getting back to some other points, and then I'll have a couple articles. And of course, before we are done tonight, I'm going to be telling you about this coming Friday's episode. I want to talk about, just for a couple minutes, Unique Harris's case. You remember, this is a disappearance that we covered in, I think, November of 2020. Her mother, Valencia, was the guest. To go over the facts real quickly, Unique was in Washington, D.C., living there. She was at home with her kids and then was babysitting another family member's child. And she had put these kids to bed. When the kids got up the next morning, Unique was there, never seen again. There were signs that something had gone on, that maybe somebody had been over there. And at least at the time of the interview with Valencia, it was unclear exactly what happened. And this is a disappearance that I think occurred in 2010. So at that point, it was 10 years old. Well, not long after Valencia was on Unfound, a man, I didn't write his name down here, a man was charged with Unique's disappearance and her murder, although to my knowledge, her remains have not been found yet. But I saw that Valencia posted within the last few days that the court date has been pushed back. How far back? I don't know. Is it still going to take place this year? I have no idea. But if any of you were thinking that this was going to be going to trial soon, it doesn't sound like it. What is now known on top of that, all that information, is that it seems that Unique and this guy did know each other. This was not a stranger on stranger crime. Somehow Unique and this guy knew each other. I don't know if she invited him over after the kids were in bed. I don't know if he showed up unexpectedly. I don't know if maybe she had went to meet him and they came back to her place and something happened. I don't know. But it is believed that something of a foul play nature happened in that apartment where Unique was with those kids. Just very fortunate, I guess, that the kids didn't get harmed as well. But that court date, and it's one that I think I might have talked about in the last update episode going back to May or April. That court date has gotten pushed back. Probably nobody is surprised about that. Moving on. I talked about this earlier, but I'm going to talk about it again very quickly regarding Patreon. And many of you are Patreon supporters. If you'd like to support the program for just the low price of $2 a month, you can go to patreon.com/Unfound Podcast. You can read the blog and get the episodes early and a whole bunch of other cool stuff. But regarding the Patreon blog that I usually write by Sunday, I have not had a chance to write it yet. I've been on the road. I've been a little busy. In fact, I felt fortunate to even get the Craig Freer blog done. It was a combination of what I wrote about in the book, the Unfound book, back from 2017 when it came out regarding Craig's disappearance. It was a combination of that and then more recent observations put together into a blog. I felt very fortunate that I was able to get that done. But the blog for Michaela Balle, if you're a Patreon member and you're waiting for that to come out, I've not even started it yet. Hopefully it will get done within the next 5 days or something. We'll just have to see. No writing is going to get done while I'm driving back to Florida, that's for sure. And I have a episode to get out this Friday, so I still have to do all of that, get the script done and recorded and everything else. That's all has to still be done by Friday. That has to be number one. So when all that gets done, I will get around to writing the Michaela Balle blog. And then I guess at that point, I'll have to write the blog for this coming Friday's episode. I'm going to be busy. So if you're looking for that blog, it's just not been written yet. And finally, regarding unfound items, right before this live show started tonight, Deborah Murray, who is a former guest going back to 2018, I think. She was on as a guest back in 2018. She is the mother of Mandy Stokes, who went missing in Oakland, California over 10 years ago. You might remember that. That is a disappearance that was actually on the TV show Disappeared. She informed me that her son, Aaron, has died. And I have to admit, I've not spoken to Deborah much since she has been on. But recently we've had some kind of back and forth. But today she let me know that her son Aaron was deceased. She's not sure of the details at this moment. He was living in New Orleans, and that is where he died. Now, the reason I even bring this up, maybe some of you who know Mandy's disappearance well, is that it seems that Aaron was the last person to see Mandy before she went missing. They were living together, and both of them had addictions, drug issues, even though they were living together. The story was that she was out in her car. Remember, she had a boyfriend. If some of you remember, she was out in her car. She was talking to her boyfriend in New York, wherever he was. And then the phone got cut off. And he tried to call her back and she didn't pick up. Not sure what happened. But then later, Mandy's car is found a couple miles away, kind of parked like right on, like in a parking lot or somewhere. Maybe the car got moved or something. Nobody saw anybody park the car there, and she has been missing ever since. And there are people, I suppose I could be convinced of this, that maybe believe that Aaron actually was the cause of his own sister's disappearance. How that all worked out within the facts of what we know them, I don't know. Could it be that maybe her phone died and she went back up to the apartment to charge it or something, and they got into a fight and something happened? Certainly possible. I don't know if there are any facts to dispute that, but Aaron had a lot of issues. He continued to have a lot of drug issues after Mandy went missing. Deborah, this is the disappearance of Mandy Stokes. This is an episode that I believe came out sometime in 2018. Mandy Stokes, Stokes. And so I guess what I'm saying is if he knew anything about his sister's disappearance, we're not going to ever know that now. So Deborah has now lost two of her children. I have to admit, I can't remember if she has any other kids besides those two. So I just found and in fact, it sounds to me that he has been dead for like a week, and she is just finding out now. And she let me know. But it very well be, the story that he told was that, there was a witness, if we're to believe witnesses, who said the two of them were arguing or something. And then Mandy admitted that, I think, in the conversation, talking to her boyfriend in New York. But what Aaron has said is that, yeah, they argued, and then he went in to take a shower. She took off, and he says he never saw her again. But we have this issue that she was talking on the phone right in the middle of the conversation, got cut off. This boyfriend, who is, I think, proven to be in New York, tried to call her back. She never picked back up. So, not sure what happened. Carrie says, I also agree. I always hope and pray when family passes, they get all the answers they search for. Yeah, you're welcome, Deborah. Kathy says, yes, Cherie, I too feel that Aaron is responsible for whatever happened to Mandy. So that is kind of breaking news. Probably I will include that in the update episode the next one will be coming out at the end of August. So we have about 5 weeks before that happens. So let's move on to some other things. I have a couple of articles that I'm going to read for I guess what we would call the news section of this live show. We got about a half hour to go. And then we will be done for tonight. And then I will download this. Man, Sheree, this naked, whatever this is, this person just won't give up. Will this person, Sheree? This troll or whatever else is. I always wonder when people post that stuff, do they actually think that stuff is going to work? That somebody's going to see that and say, oh yeah, I've been looking for love and I'm really going to go on to that. I just don't get it. I don't get it. It's so weird. People that do this stuff are so weird. They must have no lives whatsoever. None. Zero. Zero, zero, zero. It's so weird. It's not even convincing. It's not even, even if you were looking to find love, you're surely not going to do it because of somebody posting it during a chat. But that's why we have a moderator, because there are people out there like this. Won't stop the show. Won't stop the live show. Of course not. Let's think of if it can't perform. Look at you, Deborah, getting frisky with that. Thank you. Okay, let's. I'm going to read a little bit about this. This Alex Murdaugh situation. All right, pardon me while I look off camera for a while and read this. On the evening of June 7th, 2021, Alex Murdaugh, I think this came from people.com. Alex Murdaugh allegedly reached out to his wife Maggie, asking her to meet him at the family's 1,700-acre estate in the small town of Islandton, South Carolina. According to law enforcement, source close to the investigation, Alex told Maggie that his 81-year-old father, Randolph Murdaugh III, was in failing health and that she needed to see him before he died. According to several sources, Maggie and Alex had hit a rough patch in their marriage, and she was staying at the family's beach house on Edisto Island, approximately an hour away from the family's estate. The law enforcement source tells People magazine that Maggie initially declined to meet Alex at the family home, suggesting instead that they meet at the hospital. Ultimately, she consented to meet at the property, planning to follow Alex to the hospital in her own vehicle. On her way to the house, Maggie allegedly messaged a friend saying that something about her husband's behavior felt fishy. The law enforcement says he's up to something, Maggie allegedly wrote to her friend. When Maggie arrived at the scene, she left her car running and walked to the dog kennels on the estate where her son Paul was taking photos of a dog he was watching for a friend. It's unclear what happened next, but Maggie, 52, and Paul, 22, were gunned down close to the dog kennels. Paul's body was found half in and half out of the dog kennels, authorities said. Paul was shot in the chest and head with a shotgun at close range. Maggie was shot multiple times, including one in the back, and additional shots while she was lying on the ground. She had been shot with 300 blackout ammo from an AR-style rifle. Both of them were pronounced dead at the scene. Authorities have not officially released who they believe the gunman was, but on Thursday they charged Alex Murdaugh, 54, with 2 counts of murder and 2 counts of possession of a weapon during the commission of a violent crime. He will be arraigned next week. Investigators with the South Carolina Law Enforcement Division have not divulged what evidence they have, but the law enforcement source tells People blood spatter allegedly found on Alex Murdaugh's clothes indicates he was at the scene at the time of the murder and not visiting his father at the hospital, as he later claimed. Murdaugh's attorneys have not returned People's calls for comment, but they maintain his innocence in a statement. Alex wants his family, friends, and everyone to know that he did not have anything to do with the murders of Maggie and Paul, his attorneys wrote. He loved them more than anything in the world. Now disbarred from practicing law, Murdaugh faces more than 85 criminal charges in addition to the murder counts. Most of the charges are for alleged financial crimes, including misappropriating money from his law firm, defrauding clients of funds, and computer crimes. Authorities allege that he also defrauded the family of his former housekeeper of a $4.5 million insurance settlement after she died in a mysterious slip and fall accident at his house. After the murders of his wife and son, Murdaugh made news again when he allegedly tried to stage his own death so that his one surviving son, Buster Murdaugh, could benefit from a $10 million life insurance settlement. He is criminally charged in connection with the alleged bot's suicide for hire plot and is awaiting trial in that case. According to prosecutors, he had his associate Curtis Eddie Smith shoot him on the side of the road, but the shooting was unsuccessful and Murdaugh suffered only superficial wounds. He has pleaded not guilty to all the previous charges. Murdaugh is currently being held on $7 million bond. It's unclear if additional bond will be added with the murder charges. What a fiasco. And this is one of those stories where, I'm going to guess for a long time, people in that area of South Carolina had a lot of jealousy and envy regarding the Murdaughs. The way they were living, all of their money, their status, all of that. And what you then find out that you just never know what goes on behind closed doors. Yes, all of us might not have been as ritzy as the Murdaughs, as hoity-toity and all of this stuff, but surely most of us are living better lives than the Murdaughs were. Really, Alex Murdaugh, and it seems, even though, some of his family members are victims, you just have to wonder how many of them really knew what he was doing and were just going along with it. Now, it's unclear to me, and I'm not as up on all of this as some of you are, I'm sure, but it's still unclear to me as to why he was, what happened that he needed all of this money in the first place. Why was he defrauding people? Why was he doing these accounting tricks and everything else? Maybe, I know some of you have followed this. Did he have a drug problem? Did he have a gambling problem? What was it that he was doing that, he needed to do all of this? What was going on? He had an OxyContin addiction. All right, Cherie. Assistant Cherie coming in strong with the answer to the question. He had an addiction. Oh, okay. So it's not clear to me on this. I just want to get into the luring side because we talk about that so much in Disappearances. And so, like I said, I'm not up on many of the details. But, Cherie or somebody else, why did he then feel the need to kill his wife and son? What was that all about? Were they going to go to the authorities? What's going on? Why, if he was doing this, what was killing his wife and son going to do? Was it for the insurance money, to get their insurance money or something? Cherie, if somebody else knows this, please say so. Coffee, you're asking me, somebody was looking for love. We've had a little bit of a troll in here. If you'll see, looking up the chat, Cherie has had to delete some things from a troll who is trying to wants everybody to click on to go have a good time somewhere, coffee. That's what's going on. Cherie says he was funding script doctors to supply him in all of the Carolinas for the Oxy. And so you think that his wife and son knew about it? Did he think that they were going to tell on him? That's still, like I said, Cherie, a little unclear to me that what was the point of killing his wife and son about this, regarding all this. Going broke, claim insurance. Okay, Carrie. Cherie says his wife was going to leave him and his son had a manslaughter car pending and all the truth was going to come out. Oh, I kid. So maybe he thought that they were going to roll over on him. Of course, getting a divorce, he might blab, and then the son might blab. Okay, I got you. All right. Thank you for filling me. Also, you need to look like people were out to get him. Okay. Thank you for that. Now, the big part that I want to talk about, which is more my expertise, um, is more the luring side of this. And I think this is something that all of us have to remember, that for women, when you are going through a breakup, when you are going through a divorce, if you are having custody issues, any of that stuff, you have to be very, very careful. And and it's hard to, we really can't argue with Maggie's decision here. I mean, I don't think in any way she could have ever thought that her husband was going to murder her and murder their son too. You just got to believe that she never thought that was possible. However, if these texts are true, that she was saying something, Alex is acting weird, for all of you women, this should be more than just a yellow flag. This should be a red flag. Even if you think there is no way this guy would do anything violent, he's never done anything violent to me. If you're getting a bad feeling that just out of nowhere, some ex-boyfriend or a soon-to-be ex-husband says, oh man, you got to come over here, this is going on, you should always be very suspicious of it. Now, and may try to use your kids as bait. Oh, one of our kids got hit by a car. You got to rush over here. You just got to be doubtful. You got to be very dubious of these things. If you don't show up and it's actually something real, there will be tons of time to apologize and make things right. But for women out there, you gotta be careful in things like that. It's very, very dangerous. Like I said, though, I don't know if Maggie could have predicted this, but she somehow knew that her husband was not acting like his usual self, and maybe that should have been enough. Maybe. Hindsight 2020, easy for us to talk. But this is also a perfect example of what we know happens in a lot of disappearances that Unfound is covered. Of course, the most glaring example, Tyler North. Ex-wife. Now, the issue there was that he and his ex-wife, even though they were divorced, they were still getting together for sex. Something probably that divorced people probably shouldn't be doing. And he should have known better, but the ex-wife used that to her advantage, and she and her boyfriend killed him. That is as good an example of luring as there ever is going to be. Now, the thing is, though, in Tyler's case, it doesn't seem that he had any inkling of what was going to happen. It just seemed like all the other times that this has probably gone on. My guess is that Tyler North had met his ex-wife in that park at least a few times before that. And so then we get to don't do these things. These are bad choices. You are actually setting yourself up for something to happen in which you may have no inkling. You may not even be like a Maggie Murdaugh. You will be totally clueless going in. You're actually setting yourself up. In my opinion, Maggie did not set herself up in this. I don't think she could have ever predicted this. Whereas Tyler, I'm not saying he's to blame, but let's just acknowledge that if he just, got divorced and stayed away from his ex-wife, he would still be alive. If he wants to have sex with women, there's nothing wrong with that. Go have sex with other women. Go meet other women that don't want to kill you. So this is how it happens. If any of you are still maybe a little confused about, well, what is luring? What does that mean? How does it play a role in disappearances? This Murdaugh situation is exactly that. He lured his wife to that place so he could shoot her, so he could shoot his son, and claim that somebody else did it. The only difference is he left those bodies there, whereas in disappearances, we know the bodies get taken away, or the encounter happens somewhere where the body's just left there and it's never found. So in the future, If you're a little confused about what I mean, just remember this Alex Murdaugh fiasco that's been going on for a year now. So what are some people? You needed a good time. Ed, please don't get me started. Yes, Deborah above, what did she say of it? Naked, those who talk about naked love only think of it but can't perform. Yeah. Deborah getting a little cheeky with that. Thank you, Deborah. The boat accident, right? The son was, the boat accident. Thank you, Jasmine, regarding the Murdaugh situation. There's hope. Drug is in greed. Anything becomes possible. Kristen, you are very generous. Kristen Rose coming in. She's thanking me for being me. It's the only person I know how to be, Kristen. But thank you. You are very generous with your super chat contribution tonight. Thank you so much. There's hope says lots of your cases of luring involved. I remember one where your guest was lured by the boyfriend's ex, but she said nope and didn't go. Her son's ex, the boyfriend's. I remember where your guest was lured. Yeah, her son's ex. That's not coming to my mind which disappearance that is right off the top of my head. There's hope. Deborah, I know of at least 3 friends who see their exes. Now, admit that I have some ex-girlfriends who I still communicate with. I'm still friends with them. But I don't think that there's ever been anything between us that rose to that level. And it's not like I don't want exes to get along. Of course, if they have children together, I think it's best for the children that they do get along. But you also have to realize that you never know when a spouse is going to change or an ex-spouse is going to change. Something's going on. Maybe they develop a drug addiction after you two break up. Maybe there's something else going on in that person's life, money issues, psychological issues. And, even though you may do an exchange of, your children, young children in the parking lot of a Walmart or somewhere, you never can let your guard down. All right, just don't let it become so complacent and you start, taking shortcuts and things like that. Every time, everything needs to be done to the letter. Cross all the T's, dot all the I's, those cliches, because then something like this can't happen. Kathy, there's hope. Are you thinking of Nancy Galloway? Maybe. I don't think that's the one. There's hope. I will look up the lady's name. Yeah, maybe that is Nancy Galloway. That's it, Nancy Galloway. Yes. Yeah, she said the boyfriend's ex, but she said nope, didn't go. Nancy, I don't remember that. There's hope. You have a very good memory that Nancy was going to get lured somewhere. I don't remember that. But good one on you. There's hope for remembering that. And Catherine remembered too. Good for both of you. Thank you for paying very, very close attention. Nicely done. So that's a good example of luring. Remember it for future disappearances that are covered on Unfound. Moving on. This is somebody wanted me to talk about Princess Doe. Her remains were identified. So I'm just going to read this and make a few comments on this. And then we will go through Friday's episode, and then we will all be done tonight for July 18th, 2022. This comes from Blairstown, New Jersey. A girl who was dubbed Princess Doe after her remains were found 40 years ago in a cemetery in Warren County, New Jersey, has been identified as a Long Island teenager, authorities announced Friday. Authorities have charged a convicted felon already in prison with the murder of Dawn Olenek, 17. Of West Babylon in Suffolk County, New York, according to the Warren County Prosecutor's Office. The suspect, Arthur Kinlaw, 68, is currently serving 20 years to life in Sullivan County, New York on 2 first-degree murder convictions. Wow. Witness accounts indicate that Arthur Kinlaw had met the previously unknown female and attempted to lure her into prostitution, the prosecutor's office said in a release. When she refused, he drove her to New Jersey, where he ultimately killed her. A worker at the Cedar Ridge Cemetery in Blairstown near the Pennsylvania border found her remains on July 25th, 1982. In a heavily wooded area of the cemetery near a steep embankment leading to a stream, the prosecutor said. She had been beaten beyond recognition. She died of blunt trauma to her face and head with multiple fractures. Investigators who sought her to identify her called her Princess Doe. Blairstown residents gave her a burial. Her gravestone reads, Princess Doe, missing from home, dead among strangers, remembered by all. On January 22nd, 1983, the body of Princess Doe was laid to rest in Cedar Ridge Cemetery, yards from where her body was found the previous summer. The prosecutor's office said in a release, the citizens of Blairstown paid for her burial and headstone. The community has never forgotten the terrible crime that occurred, and there have been numerous memorials throughout the years since her death. Information about a lawyer who could speak on Kinlaw's behalf about the new charges wasn't immediately available. Olenick's identity was finally confirmed April 29th of 2022. For 40 years, law enforcement has not given up on Princess Doe, Warren County Prosecutor James Pfeiffer said Friday during a news conference with New Jersey State Police and other law enforcement and assisting agencies. Kinlaw confessed to the Princess Doe slaying in written statements dating to 2005, authorities revealed Friday. But the prosecutor said that determining the victim's identity was crucial to assembling a solid case. So I'm a little confused by this. I'm very happy that this has gotten resolved. It's unclear to me, though, that Kinlaw confessed to Princess Doe's slaying in 2005. Why did it take 17 years to identify her? Why was that? Obviously, Kinlaw knew what her name was, and he admitted to killing Princess Doe. Then I'm unclear why it took all this time to identify her. Maybe somebody who maybe understands this a little bit more, maybe somebody who's been following this a little more closely. Those last two paragraphs don't seem to make, if he said that yes, he killed Princess Doe, then why wasn't this solved in 2005? Why didn't they do testing back then? I realize that DNA testing continues to get better and better and better and better, but I think by 2005, they could have taken remains from back in 1982, saved them, and tested them well before 2022 rolled around. Why didn't they do it in 2006? I don't know. But I guess what I'm also saying, kind of in the same breath, is that, you know, identifying these remains, even if somebody confesses to the murder, is harder than it looks. You know, I've talked about this before regarding NamUs. Of course, NamUs has a missing persons site database and an unidentified remains site. And you would think it would be just easy. Go to one, go to the other, mix them up. You should be able to match people all the time. Not that easy. And I've talked about some of the reasons I think it's not that easy. But I think this is a perfect example of how that it's harder than it looks. Let's see what some of you are saying here. There's hope. The girlfriend out of the blue said she wanted to get together with Nancy. Okay, thank you. Cherie says, if you follow the Megan Lancaster disappearance closely, you might like to hear about Mike Moran and Piketown Massacre podcast. Yeah, this is a podcast. Remember that family, 8 of them who were murdered in Ohio? That's a podcast about that. I didn't know this, but Mike Moran was a lawyer involved in all of that. So Cherie is letting all of you know about that. I've not listened to it yet. Kathy says, Nancy said Troy's wife brought the granddaughter to Santa Cruz for Nancy to see. Nancy thought it might be a setup and didn't go. I have several relatives in Santa Cruz. Okay, I don't remember that. Thank you. Carrie said, confessed, going back to this Princess Doe murder, confessed to slaying doesn't mean he gave name, keep some control. Maybe that's it. Still, they would know where he was, maybe, and he would know. They would go back through the history, and maybe they would know that he was in that area, and they could maybe start looking at missing girls from that area. And it seems like they would be able to narrow it down fairly quickly. You may be right, Carrie, but it still seems like there might be some ways to get through all of that, but maybe not. It just feels like that we're missing something in this still regarding all of this. I don't know. But I wanted to read about that. Of course, we know if you follow the true crime news, these kinds of things are happening all the time, but it's a lot harder than it looks. And even when you have DNA and you have remains and everything, it seems like it still takes time, as it did here, 17 years, to make this all happen. The Rocco one, from what I read, when Donna told police back then, she was not credible. Are you talking about Princess Doe, the Rorqual? Is that what you're talking about? Okay. All right, we got 5 minutes to go. Allow me to talk about this Friday's episode. It's going to be the disappearance of Chase Lackey, Lackey. He disappeared from Houston, Texas on July 2nd, 2017, but it very well could be July 1st, 2017. I interviewed his father and his sister, his father Craig, his sister Heather, yesterday on Zoom. They were together in the same room, so it made it easier for me, the host. We did a Zoom, so you will get both an audio and a video version of the interview on this Friday. And although I've not started putting my side of the script together yet, I can already tell you that the title of this episode is going to be, being that we did what was last week's theory and practice, this week is going to be perception and reality. Because we have kind of two different things, two versions of that, or two instances in the same disappearance going on. There was the perception that Chase's family had of him and what the reality was. But I think also what plays a huge part in this disappearance is the perception that Chase had of one of his friends and what the reality was. And so both of those play a huge role in this. Allegedly, that Chase was out walking his dog. That is the last time that he was seen, but we talk about that in the interview, and we're pretty sure that that's not credible. Not very credible at all. And you should know, not only is Chase missing, but his dog is missing as well. So for all you dog lovers out there, I think this might be the first disappearance where a missing person and his dog is also missing, maybe. And we know maybe like Eric Alvarado, he went missing with his dogs, but unfortunately his dogs were found dead. Well, Chase and his dog are both missing. In his apartment, his truck was still there. The keys to the apartment were still there. The keys to the truck were still there. And his wallet was still there. No signs of violence. The door was locked. But he wasn't there. The dog wasn't there. The other part that you're going to be watching out for later this week as I post information is I'm going to show you two pictures that have to be part of, I bring this up once in a while. One of the more bizarre facts that you're ever going to see in a disappearance. I'm going to be very interested to see what you all have to say about these two different pictures, because I'm not sure what to make of it. And what it was that when people figured out that Chase was missing, his sister Heather went over to his place and managed to get in the place and took some pictures. Then a few days later, Chase's mother went over, also took some pictures. And when those pictures were compared, they don't match up. So you will get to see those pictures this week at some point, and you will get to examine them, and I'll love to hear what all of you make of that. So that's all I have for tonight. It was a great show, just about 2 hours. So what did we do for this July 18th, 2022 live show. And of course, everybody's going to be listening to this come tomorrow, everybody who missed it. Talked about Worlds Disc Golf, talked about my buddy Dave and his family, talked about seeing my sister, Charles's mother. Of course, I'm here at my dad's until tomorrow. Talked about going back to Florida. The Michaela Balle poll, Jody Walsh, meeting a listener at the disc golf course, Amanda Fravel, Chelsea Cobo, that show Missing docuseries on Hulu, Unique Harris, Patreon, the blog for Michaela Balle, not going to get done later this week. Mandy Stokes' brother's death. I talked about Alex Murdaugh, murderer. Talked about Princess Doe. Took questions from Jasmine and Anna. Talked a little music tonight. And finally, we talked about this Friday's disappearance, the disappearance of Chase Lackey. So that's all I got. Thank you all for watching, taking some time out of your Monday night. And the next time you see me, I will be back in Florida. Thank you so much, everyone. Sheree did a great job with the moderating tonight, being that we had that troll in there. Thank you so much for that. And follow us on TikTok, patreon.com, paypal.me/Unfound Podcast, all of those places. Thank you for the generous contributions through Super Chat tonight. And Charles, I am going to take it easy. Good night.